So I remember you telling me a story about a time when you were a little bit older, still in the religion, and I guess you were going a little astray, and your family sent you to go live with your brother in Virginia. Mm-hmm. So I was just wondering, what was that like?
Yeah, so my teenage years, I kind of was like testing the waters a little bit. And I think I was a freshman, maybe a sophomore
In high school?
in high school. Yeah. So I was 13, 14 years old ish. Yeah. And a boy that was a senior took interest in me and he pursued me. And I was just like, no, no, no. And finally, I started hanging out with him. He wasn't necessarily a very, it wasn't necessarily the greatest life choice on my part, but I remember he had a graduation party. And this was before like tracking. I didn't even have a cell phone, right? Because I was 13, 14 years old. And I went to his house and I was there. And then all of a sudden I hear a knock at the door and it was my dad. I have no idea to this day, like how he knew I was there. So,
Jehovah told him.
but which is wild though, because he had to have known I was being like living like a double life, like going back and forth, because how would he know otherwise, right? Like he had to have some sort of intel from somewhere. I mean, his address, he was at his house and I hid in his room. And I remember the dad was like, she's not here. And I was mortified. And when I came home, I was told that my brother was coming up from Virginia and I was going to spend the summer down there. And I was in like complete isolation. I couldn't even tell this kid that I don't know if he thought I died. Like, I mean, I dropped off Facebook. It was before social media, all that stuff. So like when you have no phone, it was landline, like there was nothing. And I spent the entire summer down there with my brother and his wife. And I don't know if it was part punishment, but I think it was also to just kind of reprogram me. I was going to all of the Kingdom Hall meetings down there. I was preaching. And then I came back for 10th grade and like nothing happened. But that was like, it kind of stayed with me because one, I was like, this is crazy that my dad showed up, but also like being sent away. Like it literally was like a reprogramming summer. It's funny now, but it was pretty traumatic because I was heartbroken that like I couldn't contact this person. So that was my summer where I was misbehaving and reprogrammed according to my parents. I still want to know how they knew all of it.
I'm telling you, it was Jehovah.
Maybe like, I don't know. We're back.
We're back. Thanks for joining us again for episode 4 of our podcast, Just Wondering, Growing Up and Leaving the Jehovah Witnesses. I am your host, Paul, along with my lovely wife, Lydia.
Hello.
And like Lydia said, we're back. Was a little bit of a hiatus. We went on vacation and then kind of got back into life real quick. And it's just been a little bit of difficulty. Travel baseball season is upon us. So any of you travel sports followers out there know exactly what it's like to not have your schedule anymore or find out your schedule Tuesday or Wednesday for the rest of the week.
Yeah.
So we are thankful we've found some time to record right now and happy to be back.
I feel like all the comments and feedback that we received has been like really, really cool. I think it's kind of wild to hear people's stories, especially on like TikTok where people are commenting. So it's really cool. I think that was like the purpose of this in our heads. I know it was the purpose was to create this network where people can just like talk and find some commonality, because going through this and growing up in this and leaving it, it's so crazy. Mm-hmm. That you feel so alone in it, that it's nice to like for it to come up on your feed and be like, oh, I like totally align with this.
Yeah.
And even on YouTube, there was a woman that commented about like having a student who's a Jehovah's Witness and like how she can help them as a student. And I really admire that, because looking back and knowing like having experiences with teachers, like they knew I was different, but they were always very respectful, even though they probably didn't really agree with what was going on, or like the conversations my parents would have with them, or the sending them out of classrooms or things like that. And she had talked about having a Christmas concert because she was a piano teacher. And she was like, what can I do to make them feel like included? And that's nice. And I think sometimes just acknowledging it and making them feel like they can confide in you and maybe talk to you and have like a sounding board. And maybe they don't, but at least show them kindness and acknowledge that you see it and you feel for them. You have some empathy or some compassion for them. So yeah, no, it's been really cool.
Yeah, I think we've definitely, over the last few weeks, with having not put out an episode, we've heard from several people, when are you going to get another one out there? We're looking forward to it. We were on a walk the other day and ran into someone, and she was like, I've been listening. It's been great. And it's awesome to hear that. I had an old friend from high school reach out recently, texting, I haven't talked to in years. And he was just kind of saying how, going through similar stuff within his family, similar but different. But it's just great to hear from everyone. Yeah. And that's really the reason we started it. And I don't know if we ever really dove into exactly why we started it. I had always joked with Lydia that, she's got great stories and that we should share them. And but Lydia was on a recent trip with friends, and I don't know if you want to just share high level.
Yeah, I was in Disney, shocker.
Shocker.
And we were doing the marathon weekend, so we had a lot of downtime to just sit there and reflect on our poor decision of signing up to run 50 miles in a weekend. So
yes, 50 miles in a weekend. You heard that correctly.
So we were just laying around in the hotel room, and my friend that I was with was like, oh, two of the girls that I was with, I didn't know before the trip. And they were like, you should tell them like how you grew up. So I started kind of going down it. And one of the girls said to me, oh, I have a friend at work who I found out like is also a witness. She's our age. So quite young now. But she's raised in it and her whole family's in it. And I guess, there's this term like in the ex-Jehovah's Witness world, it's called PIMO, and it's PIMO, and it's physically in, mentally out. It's an acronym. So physically, as in like her body, she's preaching and going to the church, the Kingdom Hall, and like her family either knows or doesn't know, right? And it, like my parents just kind of skirted it. But mentally is like out, and she's living like essentially a double life. And I felt so much hurt and sadness for her, because I knew how that felt when I was 19. Mm-hmm. And I think back, if I decided to not follow my heart and I said, you know what, the odds are against me, I need to stick here. Mm-hmm. And I stayed, I don't know how mentally I would be. I think I probably would have had like a breakdown or like I don't know. It's just, and then having 40 years of that as opposed to 20, right? And then having to just restart. In your 40s, you should be like, all right, this is who I am. I know. And I said to my friend, I was like, it's just so sad because she doesn't have an outlet, or she doesn't have like anybody that she can talk to or just express her like doubts, because you're trained that that's like satanic thinking. Mm-hmm. And she knows what she'll lose.
Yeah.
And I guess like her whole extended family, like aunts, uncles, like it's not just mom and dad and brothers and sisters. It's right. Like the whole crew. And I said, like if I can share my story and that person or one person hears it and says, you know what, like she did it, right?
Yeah.
She's not addicted to drugs and have 6 kids and live on the streets, and she's built a life for her. Yeah, there were lows, there were highs, and there still is.
Yeah.
And it's still with me. It never goes away. And I think that's the part that is the hardest for people that aren't Jehovah's Witnesses to understand, because people leave religion all the time. And that's why I don't I call it a religion, but it's much more of like a cult sort of situation.
It's like a forced community.
Yeah, because it's all conditional. I converted to Catholicism. We got married in a Catholic church. I went through 9 months of religion class. Yeah. I got all my sacraments on Easter. The Easter Vigil? Was that?
It was Easter time.
Clearly, we don't go to church anymore. But it was really cool because to me, that religion felt there was history and there was like I didn't learn these rules like, oh well, now you need to get different friends.
Right.
And now you need to do this 4 times a week. And you can't watch these shows, listen to this music. It was just me going to church and I got to know new people.
Right.
So I converted and we got married in a Catholic church and we had the full mass and we baptized our boys when they were born. And then after that, we took a pause because I wasn't really active. We had moved here. You never really.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up Catholic, but and received all my sacraments. We were not avid churchgoers after I received my confirmation. Up until that point, I think the majority of our church going had to do with just making sure that I was doing the things I needed to do to receive my sacraments. My sister went to Catholic school, but I think that was more of a family choice. But I never went to Catholic school, and from the time I received from confirmation up until the time we got married, I had very minimal.
Yeah, you didn't really come with me, which was fine.
No, I mean, I joined you for certain things that you went.
The important.
We should also mention that you decided to convert not because we were getting married. That was a decision that was already in the process.
It was already in the process. I think it was a way of me kind of putting to bed and exploring, right? I never was given the option to explore religion. Mm-hmm. I was told, this is what you believe, and these are the rules that are associated with it. Catholicism kind of felt like a natural path.
Well, I think your grandmother, Ethel, was Catholic, and I felt like that was Catholic. A strong pull for you.
It was, and I admired her greatly. I still do, and it was cool. It was a very cool experience for me, and I enjoyed it, and I'm very grateful that I did it. I learned a lot, but that was my choice. I was able to decide that for myself. Mm-hmm. So once we baptized the boys, I was kind of like, well, we're not really actively participating. That if we're going to keep going with this, then we need to start going to church. And is that a priority to our family right now? And we both decided it really wasn't.
Right.
We talked to the boys about spirituality, and they ask a lot of questions, right? Because it's natural, especially when they hear things in school. But we always kind of say to them, we've left it for you to decide. Mm-hmm. They know where churches are. And I said, if you want to go to church, we can certainly go. Or if your friends invite you to go, we can go. I'm fine. I'm not saying we are atheists and we're anti-religion.
Right. Nor do we judge anyone who is into a specific religion or lets that guide their life. I think the biggest thing that we look at is you for so long in your life, getting back to the original point, were dictated what you had to do, who you could talk to. And we, just because at this point in our lives, we don't necessarily participate in any type of religion, doesn't mean that we have anything against people who do. And it's just not a daily part of our life at this point in time. But that's not to say that it won't
change.
Be.
Yeah. I mean, the boys, especially Jack, he asks me questions all the time, and which is cool because to me, that's critical thinking. Mm-hmm. And that's curiosity. And that's what I want them to do. I didn't have that curiosity. I didn't have that critical thinking. I was just told from my earliest memories, this is the truth. Everything else is lies. Those people are bad. We have to help them. Armageddon's coming, right? It was religion was a scary thing.
I think for me, that's the part that I still kind of shake my head at, is that like, it's okay to believe a certain thing. It's okay to be part of a community that believes that certain thing. But when you're actively told that people who don't believe that are a certain way, that, I don't know, like when you were growing up, what did you think about people? Do you remember thinking differently about people that weren't in the religion?
I mean, I always had a guard up from a young age. And I was always hyper aware of how I was acting, what I was saying, how I was dressing, because everything is under a microscope. You know, was a very emotional child. I still am a very emotional adult. But that was like, I was told, like, I need to rein that in because that was a weakness, and that I needed to show self-control, and I needed to be humble, and I needed to ask Jehovah to help me be more mature and to be an example to my younger siblings and an example to like every child that I come in contact with. Imagine being like 8 years old and being told like, you are an example to every person that you come in contact with. So you need to be top notch. So it created a lot of anxiety, and it created an inability to connect with people. And that was one of the hardest things once I left, was to form real, meaningful relationships, because all of my friendships were pretty transactional. And I was just looking for acceptance, and I would conform to who they were while struggling with the fact that 3-4 years ago, I lost everything. So I was kind of a hot mess. Like, my 20s were not good. I made really bad decisions. I wasn't proud of myself. I put on like a brave face because I knew the decision I made was right still. But I was essentially at 22, 23 years old, like a child with adult responsibilities. I wanted so badly to get married, to have a family, and I just felt like that wasn't in my cards, because one, who would love me with the baggage that I'm bringing? I mean, anytime I dated somebody, I had a huge weight on my shoulders. Like, how am I going to tell them, like, I don't talk to my parents, or I was raised this way, or, you know, like, it was a huge thing. And that was still a very large thing for me up until a few years ago, when I really started to like unpack the trauma that I had just put away for a really long time. Yeah.
Was there a point in your 20s when you seriously thought about the possibility of going back? Was there ever a moment, or was that just never an option?
I remember I went to the memorial once. My mom invited me. It was shortly after I had left. I want to say within 2 years of leaving, that like celebration that we talked about in our last podcast, the one holiday they celebrate. And I went, and it never was because I wanted to go back. It was always like, well, if I do this, it was for acceptance, and it was hope. And I was like, well, maybe if my mom sees that, like, I respect her and I'm going to go here. And she didn't respect me. She didn't say hello to me. I had to sit in the back by myself. No one made eye contact with me. And on top of that, I was like, I remember I had like hives all over me, because that's a lot.
Yeah.
Right? Like, these people I spent 20 years with, these were like my family. And 2 years later, even maybe less than, they're like shunning me. I always hoped that by being kind and being respectful and keeping myself small with my parents, that eventually they would come around. And I never wanted them to think, they have this terminology, it's called apostate. And it's when you talk poorly about Jehovah, or you call out on their teachings about how, it's like they're man-made teachings. This religion was only formed in like the late 1800s by a guy. Like, it's not like this is going back to like the roots of Catholicism, Judaism, and, Buddhism and all that stuff. No matter how small or how like quiet I stayed, it never was enough. And that's why after I became a mom, I got a little louder with my mom, saying like, hey, like, this is your grandbaby. I'm a mom now. Like, I have my own life. Like, you need to respect me. Mm-hmm. I'm going to let you have glimpses of it, but like, this hurts me. And you got to like figure out what you're doing. It never worked. And that's why after Jack was born, I was just like, you're done.
Yeah.
I can't keep doing this because I need to protect my peace. I'm giving you parts of my energy and my heart and my brain and my time. And it may be like a minute text, but that text consumes me for a week.
Yeah.
And I think about it and it makes me spiral and it makes me sad. And I have a baby that loses that from its mother. Mm-hmm. So this is my bubble. This is what I've created. It's your turn to do the work. I don't need to do anything. And it never changed.
No, I think the thing with your mom that always, not confused me, but always disappointed me, I guess, is that there were several moments where I'm like, oh, maybe this will be the moment where she changes and shows up for Lydia. And I think I had convinced myself that when your dad died.
And everyone was trying to convince me. And what did I keep saying?
Yeah, no, I mean, you called it. You said it's not going to change.
It's not going to change. Nothing's going to change.
I had just felt like, okay, her father's gone. Her father was the one who brought them all into the religion. Her mom, was going along with it because she loved him. And she, I'm sure she believed in everything too. But kind of like we always talk about, there's someone pulling you in and keeping you in. And maybe that was your dad, and with your dad gone, maybe your mom will now do what she wants to do.
But if you think about it, my dad died, yeah. But in Jehovah's Witness worlds, dying is actually not that sad. Like, yeah, it's sad. They're not here anymore. But like, my mom believes in her heart and her brain, everything, and so do my brothers, that once Armageddon comes, they're seeing my dad again.
Right.
And it is much sadder to her that I ain't going to be there. And neither is my sister. This is temporary. Well, I mean, now she passed, but now my brothers are just waiting for both of them. But like, how sad is that? That my brothers are just waiting. And I feel so bad for them that they hold on to this when they have real sisters alive and well with families and they don't want any part of it.
Well, it's the same thing I basically said about your mom with when your dad passed. When you're, it's a test at that point. Was your mom really all in on the religion when your dad passed? Well, I guess she was.
She was.
And then when your mom passed and both your parents were gone, are your brothers really all in on the religion? Or are they going to, say, hey, out of respect for mom and dad, we shunned you, but now that they're gone, like, we want to have a religion? And no, that didn't happen either.
I mean, my brother, there was moments, remember?
Josh, yeah.
So Josh was a very respected member of the congregation. I think he was an elder. I mean, based upon like hearsay, I think he was an elder, which means he was like...
Right, because nobody's talking to you, telling you.
To me. He got married super young, 20 years old. And he was living a double life for, I think, quite some time while he was an elder. And it all came to fruition when he got somebody pregnant and it was not his wife. And all of a sudden, I'm getting a phone call from my brother because he was disfellowshipped. Because while he was repentant, we talked about this before, sometimes the sin is so egregious that they have to like prove a point.
Right.
Like, he's an elder. Like, this is gross misconduct.
He can't just say, I'm sorry, and come back. Like, there's got to be a punishment.
Yeah. Because they have this thing called... oh my God, what is it called? I like all the terminology. So there's disfellowshipping where you're shunned, reproved. So reproved is like you did something bad. I never got reproved. I probably would have if I stayed. But you show repentance and the elders are like, okay, you'll get a hall pass here, but you lose privileges. Like, you can't go preaching or you can't talk at the Kingdom Hall. Like, and they make an announcement. Everybody looks at you. It's embarrassing, right? Yeah. It's an embarrassment, like it's a humiliation.
Yeah, it's hard enough that you did this thing,
right? And then they don't tell you what it is, but then like very quickly they have what they call local needs, where they talk about what you did. Whether it's drinking, drugs, something sexual.
Right, you talked about this when you were disfellowshipped.
Yeah.
Then like the next meeting, it's like, this is why we don't do this.
Yes.
So it's like, they don't say it directly, but it's pretty cause and effect.
So he got disfellowshipped, and I don't know all the details, but he was like, I want to talk to you. And I remember we FaceTimed. I said to him, and I think at that point his baby was born, because I met Quinn on the call, and in true fashion he looks exactly like my brothers and my kids, right? Like the genes are very strong. And
excuse me, our kids,
but I mean
they don't look like me at all.
You. Right. And I said to Josh, I said, what are you gonna do? Because he was living in Virginia, and he's like, I'm figuring all this out. I said, why don't you just come to Indiana? And I remember you were like, you just like looked over, and I just looked at you, and I was like, and he was like, what? And I was like, come to Indiana. You can live with us until you figure out what you're doing. But there's no reason to do this alone.
Right.
Like if you were truly not happy, you obviously were not happy. If you were living this double life and having, in Jehovah world, you don't get divorced. The only way you get divorced is if adultery occurs. It's the only like rule. Mm-hmm. Like, so they got divorced. He had nothing. I mean, he was like, this was the biggest shock probably ever. Mm-hmm. And he was like, let me think about it. I sent his baby like this whole box of stuff. And I never heard from him again.
And he's back in.
That goes back to what I was saying before. They take little pieces of you when they're having those moments. When my dad died and my mom needed me, and I gave it to them. And the thing with Josh like affected me a really long time, because now he's bringing a baby into this world and doing the same thing that they did to us.
Yeah.
The cycle, it continues. And this baby is going to probably have the same struggles that we did. And yeah, my brothers all hang out. They have lives. But it baffles me how my brother just went back and like pretended like my brothers didn't talk to him for months and months and months when he was in a dark, probably borderline, like dark place.
Oh yeah, I would have to imagine you'd be at that point.
And just went back. Yeah, I'm back. Right? Mm-hmm. So then like, why'd you call me?
Right.
But it goes back to that like conditioning where the world is scary.
It's like
can't be trusted.
They purposely don't equip you to be able to be on your own.
Mm-hmm. And in my brother's mind and in the organization's mind, well, look what happens when you went astray. You cheated on your wife, got someone pregnant, you have a baby out of wedlock. When a rational, critical thinking person would say, you got married at 20 years old to somebody you didn't love. And you were, at a very young age, being treated like an adult because he was the oldest son, and there was a lot of responsibility on him. He didn't finish high school. He got homeschooled.
Yeah, he had to course correct you when he came to live with him in Virginia.
I know. He was taking care of me and his wayward sister. And, like, yeah, you messed up. Yeah, you shouldn't be sleeping with other women, except your wife.
Yeah.
But guess what?
Everyone knows that.
You did it, and nature happens, science happens, baby was made. It's still a beautiful thing. Like, he doesn't deserve to be punished for it. But, yeah, I don't know. It's just kind of crazy to me. And that's why it is like a high control organization. And I still struggle with calling it a cult. I really do. Because when I hear cult, I think of drinking Kool-Aid, wearing robes, all that stuff. But it's a high control. And like, I still, 22 years later, still have like mental things from it. Because it was in my DNA, right? Like, my foundation was built on that.
Well, I mean, at this point in your life, you're still like 50-50 as far as time in and time out. I mean, you're a little more on the other side of being out, but your most formative years you spent in. So that just doesn't disappear. And you're still here at this point at your age with 3 brothers who every day make a decision not to talk to you. it's not something that you're just never reminded of, right? Your dad's gone, your mom's gone. And when people ask you about them,
it's kind of easier when they die.
Right. Because, it's just, you could say
it's such a terrible thing to say.
They're no longer here.
Yeah.
Right.
And then people are like, oh, I'm sorry. And I'm like,
right.
It's okay.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know, like
yeah.
When people hear like, oh, you don't have like your mom to like help you. And I'm like, no, I don't. But in the back of my head, I'm going, I wouldn't have had her either.
Right.
way.
But it's an easier segue.
Yeah.
Oh, they're no longer with us. Oh, that's sad. Yeah, it is. Right. As opposed to me, who's like, oh, your dad's not around. Yeah, no, he's actively choosing not to be.
Right.
Right. And then that's a whole conversation or not, but it's an awkward moment.
Yeah.
Oh, my mom's gone. Same thing.
Yeah.
If she was here, I don't know what that would look like, but she's not here. So it's an easier conversation.
There's like a finality to it.
Right. But with your brothers, I mean, especially with Ethan looking so much like them.
Yeah.
I mean, I would imagine that's, I don't know how often, I'm not in your head, so how often you look at him and think of them, but I would have to imagine
it's pretty much every day. And then you have Jack asking all these questions. Did you have a mom? Was she nice to you? Like all these questions. Because I think in his little 7-year-old brain, it doesn't make sense to him. Right? Like he has a mom and I'm not going anywhere.
Right.
So.
Yeah, he's too little to fully understand. I think Ethan's asked questions at times, and like Ethan knows we do this podcast and talk about it.
Yeah.
But I don't think he knows the full details or full spectrum of what you went through as a child. He knows that you were a witness, and we talked to him about like the fact that you didn't celebrate birthdays or holidays and things like that.
I know, which is like, they just think it's the saddest thing ever.
Of course. Yeah, but they don't know how lucky they are. In a way, they have benefited from your lack of celebrating holidays and birthdays because you go over the top with everything now.
But even when we were in Disney for Easter, right? We flew home on Easter. And right before we had left, I was like, oh, yeah, we fly home on Sunday, that Easter. And Ethan and Jack both were like, well, how's the Easter bunny going to get here? Mm-hmm. And it didn't even dawn on me. Like, I didn't even think of that. But then I got so happy because I'm like, they still have that like innocence. Mm-hmm. Whereas when I was Ethan's age, I was carrying the weight of the world on my shoulders.
Right. There was no Easter bunny.
There was no Easter bunny. And I was like thinking about things that I didn't have to think about. Mm-hmm. Part of like the religion is kids really aren't kids. And that's really sad to me. And I don't know, it might have changed since I left, but growing up, it's like,
well, like why
hyper adulting children.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that you had to spend time learning so much because they wanted you to go out and preach and knock on doors and try and get, new followers. Like, why is someone at 8 or 9 being concerned with trying to bring other people into the religion? It's one thing to teach it. Right. I went to Catholic school, to religion classes when I was getting ready to, receive my first Holy Communion. So that way I could learn about it. But I didn't go to those classes so that way then I could go out and try and get people to become Catholic. Right. Like that wasn't,
it's kind of wild.
That wasn't the point of what I was doing. But every class you took, every meeting that you went to was, here's this information to live by. And then immediately go out and sell it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And why at 9 is that your responsibility as a child?
So like we talked about like how this kind of all came to fruition. I remember like when I went to therapy, it's with my best therapist of my entire life. I still think about her probably on a weekly basis and like use the tools that like she gave me. She was like, you should journal. You should like write this down. You should write a book. And I was like, that was so daunting. Like, I can't write a book. Can't even manage my normal day. And on top of it, I'm going to write at night. But, like, I knew that I didn't want to, like, hold this in. And I think that's one of, like, the weirdest things about doing this because people are listening that, like, I may only interact with, like, on, like, a professional level. Mm-hmm. People closest to me know my story, right? But they might hear new things that, like, I've never shared with them. But I think that's the part of like being and this is going to sound so stupid, like the human race, which I think is like just so fascinating because we all carry all this stuff.
Something.
And you don't even know, right? You see somebody in the grocery store and you don't know what their story is, but they could be going through turmoil, right? They could be sick. They could be estranged from their family. I think about like kids in the boys' school, like chances are very likely that there's a Jehovah's Witness kid. Part of like sharing this was for people, one, to like get like alignment, right? And be like, okay, like I can glimmer some like advice or tips, or I don't know, just be empathetic towards it.
Yeah.
But also give people a platform to be like, oh, I want to share my story. And I think that's where I would love for this to go, is to have people like come on, because everyone's story is so different when it comes to like Jehovah's Witnesses and the organization or any type of like high control religion, but everything is so unique. My story will never be replicated by another person. Everyone's trauma is very unique to themselves. It's their own, and it shapes who you are. It's not a bad thing. I think when you hear trauma, you're like, oh my God, that's terrible.
Right.
But trauma doesn't need to be as terrible as like,
or as debilitating.
Yeah. I mean, there's other traumas, right? Abuse and alcohol, and there's terrible other terrible trauma. But then there's little traumas, right? I mean, an absent parent.
Well, I think everyone's trauma is unique to them, but on some level, everyone experiences their own trauma. I think that sharing these stories, like I said, my friend that reached out had nothing to do with religion, but was experiencing some similarities with not talking to family members, and like there's a way to relate there to what we're talking about. I think you talked about it earlier, and we didn't dive into it, but in your 20s, the idea of finding someone who could accept you and your family dynamic, I think a large portion of the reason that we ended up together was because we both had our own family issues. I had my difficulties dealing with my relationship with my mom at the time, who was an alcoholic and had essentially kind of just given up on life. And I was doing my best to try and hold things together in my own life and with her and managing all of that. We met each other and it was like, wow, you're going through something, I'm going through something completely unrelated, but we were able to kind of bond through that.
Well, because we both wanted the same thing, right? We didn't want this to define who we were. We both wanted to build a life and not repeat them. Yeah. And I think that's why decisions we make in our life, right? Like we have boundaries. Protecting like our family unit is really important, and nothing is more important than that, even if that does involve like some crappy stuff, right?
I know people always, they'll ask, why are you guys in Indiana? And I think we always just fall back on like cost of living. But I think the biggest thing was we wanted to create a life for our family that we didn't have. And we didn't have many ties left that were holding us in New York. And so we decided to go somewhere where we felt like we could give our kids the life that we didn't have.
And part of it was just leaving that stuff behind.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, we have a lot of people in New York that we love, right? Like, and
a lot of people.
Yeah. And bagels.
Pizza.
But I think part of it was just starting new and not having those reminders, even if they're subconscious. When you grow up in a smaller town with not a lot, there's a pull there, and you have a lot of memories, and you have a lot. It was nice to come somewhere and be like, this is ours.
Yeah. Well, you talk about setting up boundaries. I mean, most of the time boundaries are mental boundaries, right? But we did set up some physical boundaries. Yeah. I know for me, it was a lot easier to manage the relationship with my mom when I didn't have to worry about driving 5 minutes to go check on her, because now I'm, 6 states away.
Yeah.
And that was freeing at the time. The getting over the things of our youth are ongoing always.
Yeah. I mean, it's never, I think people think like, oh, well, you're in like such a good place now, but I still think about it on a daily basis. And in fact, like this podcast has brought up a lot of stuff. I remember there was an episode we did and I was like unwell for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
Because mentally it just hit a nerve that I was like, oh.
Well, that's,
was heavy.
We joked at the beginning about our hiatus, but I think part of it is, to your point, is these, this hour that we record this episode, for you especially, it's daunting. Like it takes a toll. So even if we have 2 free hours, is it something that you want to spend that free time doing, is talking about all this? So it becomes hard. I think it becomes a little bit harder than we thought it would be to sit down and do this. And then that's kind of just going back to what we said at the top, which is the feedback that we've gotten, I think, has definitely allowed you to push through some of those challenges of talking about this on a weekly basis, because you have gotten such good feedback. Mm-hmm. And like you said earlier, if you got through to one person, or one person found this helpful, right, then it would be worth it.
Yeah, 100%.
And I think that's what, finally got us back at the table today. And our plan is still to get Sarah on the next episode. Again, just trying to coordinate schedules. That will be our first foray into having someone else come on and talk about their experiences, which I'm very interested in. Obviously, I know about Sarah's upbringing, but I don't know everything, because I don't think we talk about it as much as I obviously talk to you about it. Mm-hmm. And I know there's some, not apprehension on her part, but nerves, because, she realizes that coming on and talking about it's going to be difficult. But I think it'll be a good episode, and hopefully that'll be the next one that we record coming up here soon. We're just grateful to have this platform to be able to do this.
Yeah.
Keep the feedback coming. We're very excited to hear how everybody feels about it. And I think that'll do it for today.
Sounds good.
So,
in the words of Ethan, like and comment below.
Put the comments in. See you guys.
Bye.